What's up, motivators? Taren here. Today I want to talk about the 6 key elements that I think go into designing a well-structured endurance training plan. Those being low intensity training, high intensity training, strength training, nutrient timing, race intensity training, and recovery. Put all of these together in the right combinations, you can be a better athlete than you ever imagined. But get them wrong, and I frankly think that a lot of traditional endurance training plans do get this wrong, you are going to be working harder while actually going backwards. So I'm going to lay out how we balance all of this, and I have a new iPad, so we are going to show this off very graphically and very entertainingly.
My name is Taren Gazelle. In my 20s, I was overweight, unfulfilled, and couldn't even run to the end of the block. Over the following years, I found endurance sports, lost 65 pounds, won age groups, raced world championships, broke records, and trained and learned from some of the best athletes and coaches in the world. You too can use endurance sports to change your life and accomplish your fitness goals. You just need a system that's meant for us amateurs who want to be our best while feeling our strongest and healthiest. My company Motive offers that system, and I want to share some of the tips from it today.
The first thing I want to talk about is the balance and the focus of training. What I find happens a lot in endurance training is if there's a continuum here where over on the traditional side of the scale is high intensity training, and then this is super easy. Where I find most traditional training methods end up is over here, strictly at the high intensity training level, where the focus over here is strictly on performance. A lot of people expect that I believe that all training should be easy and it should always be easy, and actually I don't think that that's the case. I think that it should be right here in the middle where the focus is actually more on healthy training methods. And the interesting thing is that by focusing on healthy training methods, you can actually also get performance, and you can actually perform really well, better than you ever expected. But the same can't be said if you focus strictly on performance. You're not going to get health as a result. So the first thing to show is that I believe the total size of your pie, like your potential as an athlete, is made larger or smaller based on how healthy you are. And I'm going to specifically strip out pro athletes from that statement because I believe pro athletes can perform really well, obviously, even with poor health. I mean, we're seeing lots and lots of pro athletes that are sick coming into races, that get injured over the course of a year, but they're in a position that their business is literally, let's throw 20 eggs at a wall, assume that 19 of them break, and then the one that doesn't becomes a world champion. For us amateur endurance athletes, that's not realistic. We don't want to get sick, we don't want to get injured, we want to see what we're capable of, but we want to be balanced and we want to come out of this a healthier version of ourselves. That's what I hear from most people. So on the traditional training side of things that is very focused strictly on performance, I do think that the size of the potential is actually smaller. Next, the cornerstone of a good training plan is based on that number one thing, which is low intensity training. And we put a huge emphasis on roughly 75 to 80% of our training being strictly low intensity. That allows us to fill up a lot of our potential. Studies show that 75 to 80% of your training should be low intensity, and that's how you get the best performance. But in traditional training methods, tends to be an afterthought, and coaches might say, well, just make it easy, but they're not going to really strictly monitor, is that training easy or not? So I think you're filling out less of your potential there because it's not focused on so much. Next, getting to the high intensity training, this is actually kind of ironic to say that in high intensity training and traditional training methods, the amount of your potential that's getting filled out is smaller than the amount that's getting filled out in the motive method. And the reason for that being, in traditional training methods, when you do spend a lot more time at higher intensities and moderate intensities of training, you're not going to be able to hit the high intensity training really well. But when you're very well rested, with most of your training being low intensity, when that high intensity training comes in, bam, you can absolutely smash it. You're also better able to adapt to it because your body is better rested. So it's ironic to think that by training less intensely, you can actually make your high intensity training more effective, but this is what the studies show. Next, talking about strength training, we put a very, very big emphasis on strength training in our program. The strength training workouts that we focus on are designed to coordinate with the actual endurance training so that you're getting strength training that complements the endurance training at the right time of the season. We even bulk up on strength training during the base season and the off season so that you come into race season really strong. Strength training in traditional training methods tends to be almost an afterthought, and even the coaches who say, oh yeah, I focus very heavily on strength training, well, it's kind of a small portion of the overall training plan, or it's maybe dealt with a strength and conditioning coach who isn't coordinating with the endurance training coach. Next is nutrient timing. On the Motive Training app, we have a nutrition recommendation for every single workout because we want to make sure that your body is metabolically flexible so that come race day, you can burn both fat and carbs, and by doing so, you are going to have a nearly limitless supply of energy. So your potential is going to be much, much greater because your likelihood of bonking is going to be lower. Your likelihood of running out of calories on race day, almost non-existent. Whereas in traditional training methods, they really just focus on carbohydrates. And that means that come race day, you're not going to be able to burn fat as fuel. You're more likely to have GI distress and run out of energy, bonking, wobbling around, having muscle failure. In our app, we make sure that when you have to hit peak levels, yeah, you get all the carbs in the world so that you can perform at your best. When we have low intensity sessions, we make sure that blood glucose is kept very stable with products like UCAN and even just things like vegetables and berries and omelets before a workout so that your blood glucose is nice and low so that you can continue to burn fat as fuel, teaching your body how to do that. When all you're doing is hitting the carb train, you're only teaching your body how to burn carbs. We want you to be able to access both come race day. It's also far more healthy metabolically speaking, less likely to develop issues like diabetes or metabolic dysfunction. We don't train hard all the time, so we also shouldn't fuel like we're training hard all the time. I need to take a minute to thank a sponsor, which is UCAN. Now, UCAN is an excellent blood sugar stable source of carbohydrates. They have what's called super starch, which functions like a carbohydrate, but it doesn't shoot your blood glucose through the roof, causing a crash after. Yes, this is very good for training, but it's also good for day-to-day nutrition. I really like taking the UCAN bars, the UCAN granola as a food source that gives me a good amount of carbohydrates and energy while not shooting my blood glucose through the roof, causing a hunger and energy crash later in the day. And then particularly after a workout, I like the UCAN Energy Plus Plant Protein, which is a good way to, again, get the carbohydrates in, start recovering, but also gives you a really nice source of protein. You can go to ucan.co/Taren, and if you purchase anything after going through that link, you will get a discount that's applied at checkout. Again, that is ucan.co/Taren, and purchase anything to get a 20% discount. Thanks, UCAN. Next is race intensity, and I'll actually say our approach to race intensity training really isn't that different from the approach of race intensity training in traditional training. I have no data, no evidence to show that race intensity training is dealt with improperly by traditional training methods, so I'll just fess up to that. We deal with it similarly. But the sixth thing, recovery is certainly a thing. We just did a video about how we focus so much on recovery to make sure that our athletes are always ready to adapt to every single training session, as opposed to coming into training sessions tired, where your body might not actually be able to adapt to the training that you're giving it. By being better recovered and better balanced, the athlete is always going to be able to absorb the training stimuli and then adapt to it. Whereas in traditional training methods, when you're overworked, and recovery, what I've seen with a lot of training plans, it's like, okay, well, we'll give you recovery when you tell me that you finally need recovery. Basically, when you've already gone too far. So recovery is really an afterthought in a lot of traditional training methods. Now, by using this system, what athletes always say when they come to our plan is, wow, I'm training easier than I ever was. It feels easier than it ever was. There are definitely some really hard sessions, but I come to race day chomping at the bit, really eager, feeling great, feeling ready to go, and somehow I overperform all of my expectations. And what I hear from traditional training methods more often than not are people saying, I'm working so hard, I'm training, I'm hitting all my sessions, I'm really going to the well and digging deep in my training, but then I come to race day, my times are kind of always the same. Or I'm just slightly progressing, but I'm really not feeling very well. We have a lot of athletes who have actually qualified for world championships with us and then said, oh, well, now that I've qualified for a world championship, I have to go and take this seriously and go hire a coach. And then a lot of them have actually come back and said, my performance was better training with you than it was with a coach, and I felt worse with a coach, and I was paying them 4 or 5 times the amount of what your app did. And I think it's just because of the balance of this and the focus of this being more on health, being a better, well-rounded athlete. Whereas with traditional training methods, what I find is because the training is moderately hard to hard all the time, the athlete can't absorb the training. The athlete doesn't have a base of low intensity fitness to build upon, doesn't have strength to build upon, doesn't have metabolic flexibility to build upon. So they kind of become a one-trick pony if they're training to be able to train, not training to be able to be healthy and race. Now, whether you use our app or not, hopefully this helps you out. Balance everything. Have a big base of fitness with low intensity. That's going to allow you to hit the high intensity really hard. Make sure that strength is a cornerstone, not an afterthought in your training plan. Pay attention to nutrient timing so your body is getting the nutrients that actually support the workouts and encourage the right adaptation to the workout. Yes, do lots of race intensity so you can go out and hammer your race pace, but within all of this, make sure that you're always recovered so that every single day you're ready to absorb the training effect. Thank you for watching, motivators. If you're looking for a training plan that incorporates these methods that is as good as a one-on-one coach but as inexpensive as doing it yourself, check out our Motive training app that covers triathlons, running races, duathlons, swim runs, and cycling events. It's a link in the description below where you can check out your customized training plan for free. Also, if you'd rather listen to these tips, we also publish these videos in podcast format on the Taren's Motive Method podcast, so you can check that out. And if you don't want to do either of those things, but you found this video helpful, hit us up with a virtual high five by smashing the like button below. Later, motivators.